Good morning, good evening, good lunchtime, whatever it is, wherever you are. Welcome to the Vertical Show, where tonight it's death by PowerPoint, I'm afraid, or hopefully not death by PowerPoint. Hopefully something a little bit different. I've been kind of looking at the vertical format and then playing about with PowerPoint. Now I could be doing this with Keynote or Canva or Google Slides, but something like a ridiculous 92% of presentations are carried out in PowerPoint. And I thought, you know what, I'm going to try a bit of PowerPoint in vertical. So for all of you who are sitting there thinking, this isn't a PowerPoint presentation, it looks vertical. All PowerPoint presentations are 19 by 16, 19 by 16, 16 by 9, or widescreen, or maybe 4 by 3, or something like that. So I haven't actually stripped a little bit down the middle of a presentation or anything daft like that. All you actually do is you change the canvas or document or page size, whatever you want to refer to it as, and it's referred to different things in different products. But you can just make your page size effectively 9 by 16, or if the dimensions are sort of pixel, you can do 1080 by 1920, and that will be your screen estate and your canvas for your presentation. So all I'm doing here is literally running a PowerPoint presentation. Even the bit where I am, just here in the middle, that's PowerPoint's live video. So that is Cameo. I need to make sure I get Cameo and Camo not confused with one another. Camo is something entirely different. So Cameo is just the name for PowerPoint's live video. Keynote has exactly the same equivalent. Now, there's some interesting things that go on with the live video. Normally we would be overlaying this in Ecamm, and we'll come back and do that a bit later, and you'll see why in a minute or two. But the reason I'm doing this in vertical is because something like over 75% of people now consume LinkedIn on vertical on their phone. So those people also consume the most video on the phone, and also over 80% of the engagement and interactions come from the mobile platform. So why wouldn't you try doing things from this platform? So I've got my little clicker here, and I'm going to just be able to go through my PowerPoint presentation and show you a few little different bits and pieces. So at the moment, LinkedIn are all in on vertical video. They are late to the party, but within the app now, they are rolling out to most people, except me, a little scroll button that you can flick through vertical videos, and you can actually follow or like a particular participant or someone whose content you like. And when you look at the replay of that video, it's going to appear full screen. So if you were watching this live as we speak on LinkedIn, it's going to feel a tiny little strip on your mobile phone. It looks okay on a large screen if you're watching it on LinkedIn, but I would recommend heading over to YouTube if you're trying to watch this live on your phone. However, if you're watching the replay, this is going to come out full screen and looking tremendous. If you just tap on the screen once when it's in full screen, it will actually remove all of the nonsense in terms of icons and text and everything else around the screen, and you see it in a very, very clear format. So it's really like an excellent way of showing your information. And allegedly, and although I don't know whether this is true or not, LinkedIn rumours say that the vertical content is being favoured by the algorithm. That remains to be seen. But I thought I'd take you through a few slides and things that I found out, in particular when related to PowerPoint. So first things first, there are some challenges with this screen estate. So one of the challenges is text visibility. So the first thing is, you do not want to have a complicated, horrible, big, long slide deck. If, for instance, you're a lawyer from Canada, like a good friend of mine, Brian, you're never ever going to be doing a PowerPoint presentation in vertical, because it's PowerPoint presentations are just full of text, just legal mumbo jumbo that I don't really understand. But to some degree, it actually encourages you to keep your text down to a minimum, which is a good practice anyway. The next thing you may have a challenge with is image shapes and sizes. So you can see here to that side of me where I've got my nice LinkedIn image. It looks great, but of course it's kind of cropped off because it's tall and super thin. And we'll look at a slightly different format a little bit later on to try and get past that. But just bear in mind your screen real estate and the images and things may prove to be a little bit of a challenge. You've then got cameras. So as I said, I'm now operating off of Cameo, the PowerPoint equivalent of live video in Keynote. You're going to see in a second or two that my camera, when I want to move it about, doesn't necessarily behave particularly well. It's almost as if they have created PowerPoint and in fact all of the associated transitions and then thought, oh, I think we'll put live video in, because live video kind of makes a mess of some of the transitions. So let's have a look at a bit of that. I might want to just flick to a completely different slide where I'm still able to talk to you, but I'm behind the scenes because I might feel there's a lot of text on that slide. PowerPoint now does have what's called a morph facility. Keynote's had magic move for ages. PowerPoint has now got a morph, and actually it works really quite nicely for this type of slide. And I like the little glow element that you can put around things as well to highlight stuff. And I think this is kind of the volume of information you might want to have on the slide. So once I've finished with my complicated slide, I could maybe flick back down to a simpler slide where instead of using actual bullet points, I'm bringing in different icons. So one of the benefits of this type of engagement is, as I mentioned earlier, 80% of the engagement is on vertical anyway, but of course you can have a look at likes and views, and people do then stay on the videos much longer, and that's what you want. You want them to stay with you as long as possible. And you can't get quite as many stats out of these as I would like at the moment, but as I understand it, perhaps when you're streaming from company pages you might get more stats out of the information, because Microsoft do like to monetize stuff. So we'll see where they're going with that. But I thought I would try out a couple of other different slides and look at the transitions between them. So if I go back one there, what I really wanted to do was to have a nice sliding transition between different slides, but I can't actually do that because it will slide my camera off the top of the screen each time. So the camera is not independent of the transition, which would be useful. So every time I transition between two slides, if I used the normal push transition, my slide or my image would disappear off the top of the screen, reappear at the bottom of the screen every time I did a slide transition, which is just madness. It looks completely mad. So these are the challenges between cameras and transitions that I mentioned earlier on. So there we have another transition where PowerPoint slid me across nice and slowly and did bring up the second slide. So I guess that one kind of works. And on this one, I've probably got enough room to bring in perhaps some text here and bring in a comment to my slide as well. So there's enough room on the slide deck itself for you to be bringing in comments as well. So I think actually that, the screen estate is pretty reasonable, and this looks very business-like and clean and tidy, and perhaps some of the other stuff that we've done is a bit mad on vertical. I've gone in the opposite direction this time, and we have gone very corporate on you.
Well, hello. So this is just to let you know how we're actually doing this right now in vertical format. So we've created, or Martin has created, the overlays that you see right now in Ecamm Live, and we've set it to the 9:16. And we are on a Zoom call, so we're using Ecamm Live for Zoom. And with that, we can obviously bring in various guests and cameras. I'm actually a guest in Martin's production right now. and he's basically bringing me in as a camera source into Ecamm. So on the left hand side here, you can see the Ecamm camera placeholders are being added as and when guests come in, like myself. And we're actually pushing this stream out using Restream. Now, we could do it via Ecamm Live, but we choose Restream just because of my internet connection and so on. So from Restream, we're actually pushing to my LinkedIn channel, Martin's LinkedIn channel, YouTube, and so on. So that gives us a good sort of varied view of where we're pushing all these various streams to. Now, Ecamm Live has multi-streaming capability as well, so technically we could do that. But the thing that Restream offers is something called Restream pairing, which allows me to send the feed to Martin's channel and piggyback that. So anybody with a free Restream account can be added to somebody who has an actual paid for account, which allows people then, like myself, to push the streams out to various channels. So the guests, for example, if you bring them on your show, could also have a Restream paired channel as well. So that means you can, socialize and push out the stream to various other places, and it's all free using Restream's paired service, as long as one person who's actually hosting the stream, me in this case, is actually going to have a live and paid for account, which allows me to do that type of workflow. So Martin is currently going to be showing you a second variation of the presentation. And it is interesting that PowerPoint, I didn't realize that statistic, is still the most widely used PowerPoint software out there, even though there is free software and so on. So we'll just be waiting to see what Martin shows us next. But you can see just from this format, there is definite capability in the vertical slideshow that you can get really decent looking graphics, and it isn't too difficult to read even on a phone. So as a corporate entity, you could potentially push out your messages here on the vertical format and let things look really nice. So we'll just wait for Martin to push the next button, and here he is. Well, here we are.
We both are.
as if by magic.
Yeah, just by magic. So I think I peaked a little bit soon on that last deck. I think there's about half a dozen slides still to show you. So we'll run through this one, and maybe we can go back to that deck, because I pressed the wrong button, everybody. Okay.
It's all right.
I pressed to go forward a sleen rather than forward a slide. So we ended up in the wrong position. But we can go back and still do a comparison. So in that last scene that we had set up, we were full screen, covering the whole 9 by 16 area. This time round, what I've done is I've created another PowerPoint deck, but this deck is actually a sort of shorter, fatter format, so it's 3 by 4 in format, and I find actually it's a little bit more usable. And both myself and Neil are now on Ecamm, and I'll go back and show you just how bad some of the transitions are with live video in PowerPoint a little bit later after we've done our bit here. But let me show you some smoother looking transitions, hopefully. So I could be sitting here, and we could be doing this presentation, and I could say, well, actually I think Neil should be handling this part of the presentation. So we would slide over to Neil, and then we could say, hey, I think maybe we should both talk about this bit, and we can slide in and out very nicely in Ecamm. Now, what I've found with PowerPoint is it freezes the video when it's doing the transition. So you get this effect where you're sitting still, and maybe your head's like this, and then it does the transition. Suddenly your head moves in the wrong direction, and it looks terrible. So I'll demonstrate that to you a little bit later. But we've got some slides going on in our slide deck here. And what I'm interested to see really is, once we've got the slides in the slide deck, how much is too information, how much is too little information, what can you see, what looks good. So here we've got a very small amount of information, but some big graphics on the actual deck, and ways around having a lot of information on the deck are, we've got a few alternatives with Ecamm as well that are not there with the PowerPoint software. So with Ecamm, with PowerPoint rather, you can have this sort of thing going on and moving highlights around, and it looks quite nice. But what we can also do is, maybe get too much information on the slide at one time. So if we had that situation, then what we can just do is make the slide bigger, and then we can disappear behind the scenes but still be talking through the different elements on the slide. So I can be talking about vision, mission, goals, whatever it is on my slide deck, but I've actually maximized the slide deck to let you actually see some of the text. So my feeling is that probably the text is a bit small on this still, even in this size, but I wanted to see what was the maximum amount that we could get onto a single slide there, and then flick back to the other version where myself and Neil have a smaller version of the slide available here, and then just have a look at some of the other less wordy ones to see whether these are visible in this format and in this side. So there's a few interesting stats there. 36% video upload increase over the last year on LinkedIn. YouTube, as we know, has billions and billions of users. We can have real-time engagement on this platform, and because I used Gamma to create this PowerPoint deck for me, it's suddenly put in something about direct audience connection via SMS. I don't think we're doing that. So
No, not today, but
not today.
That's interesting.
But it's interesting that it threw it in there, because it's going out, it's scraping the web using AI and bringing in what it feels are relevant topics to vertical live streaming. So I don't know quite how it connected SMS in there, but I thought I would leave it in there just because I thought that was quite interesting. So
can I ask you just a quick question?
Sure.
Just on this slide, just real quick. So you created this in PowerPoint or Gamma, or you used a mixture of both to create this specific format? Because it is interesting that you can create this formatted presentation in this size and then either use that in Gamma or PowerPoint. I didn't realize that they had all these different formats that you could use specifically for, where you want to fit it within the screen, for example.
Yeah, so for those that don't know, Gamma, Gamma.io, is an AI platform that will create a deck for you in PowerPoint or a document from a prompt. So you can give it preferably a sophisticated prompt and then tell it what sort of format that you want your deck to be in. So you can say, give me some modern clean images that are photo-like, which is what I've done here. Otherwise it tends to bring in AI generated images that look like they're from Star Wars or from Disney, or something a bit odd and not particularly applicable in the corporate world. So you can ask it what you want, and then you could choose a whole bunch of styles and then play about with the cards and things like that for different formats in the same way you can do on a normal PowerPoint deck. Picture plus title plus bullet points or whatever. So there's a lot of those to choose from, including some very nice ones. So that's what I did here. But what I found out is that I had to play about with the deck a lot once I changed it to this size. So you change it within Gamma and it will put a deck together for you, but it's very clear to me that the AI still wants the deck to be in landscape format, because for instance here, where I've got the LinkedIn, YouTube icons, etc., it actually placed them across the screen, which was no use to me at all because they were tiny. So I had to make them all bigger and then put them one under the other on the screen. So actually, although it produced a deck for me, I had to go and do quite a lot of work to get the deck back into the format that I wanted it to be in. So yeah, that was a bit of a pain in the neck, to be honest with you. So
I think Gamma is really useful for wireframing, though. Sorry to interrupt you. Just like for getting like an idea. So if you, and some decks I've used directly out of Gamma really provide a good overview, and then you can just go ahead, as you said, Martin, and tweak either the images or some of the text. But I think you could probably get you 70 or 80% there, even on a reasonable subject matter, and then you could just tweak and change, and you can export it in to different various formats anyway. And I do think we should be we'll probably do a show at some point and show you a bit more of how Gamma works and some of the things that you can do and some of the limitations. But yeah, it's a great tool, definitely.
It is absolutely excellent, actually. But I think at the moment, way better for normal landscape type presentations than
Yeah.
it is for the ones that I'm showing you here. Although, in fairness, it's produced that thin image down the side, which was appropriate for what I wanted. And if it hadn't done, you can click on a button and get it to generate more images and then choose one from a selection of images as well. So it does a lot of the legwork for you that otherwise you'd have to go to Envato Elements or another picture type source for your information. So it does do a lot for you, and the output looks absolutely excellent, and it does a really good job for 90% of the content generation. You just have to go play about, as you would do with any AI tool. You know, definitely fact check it. But I really, really like the product and what it does, and so we will definitely be playing about with that. And it's a real time saver, and it's allowed me today, for instance, to create all of this stuff relatively quickly, albeit I had to reorganize stuff. I could still create a deck that largely made sense and wasn't 100% full of lorem, dipsum, ipsum, whatever it is. My Latin, I never did Latin at school. So a couple of those are still appearing on my slides, but that's just because I moved the deck around a bit. So there's plenty of screen estate to play with, would be the point. And this was kind of one of my final closing scenes on my deck earlier, but I wanted to show it and compare it with this one, so I'm going to have to go back to that other deck in a minute. But this is the kind of presentation level that you can get out of this small space, and I think that looks great. We've got clear text, we've got animation, we've got all of the bullet points in there as well, and it's really quite eye-catching. Now I might want to match in my corporate background with everything here because it's a bit colour clashing going on, but other than that, I think this looks pretty good. And what I want to do is just go back and compare this with the other version, which was really, really tall. So this one's actually, as I was saying, is slightly smaller, squashed down, but wider. And I feel that proportionally, it just lets me utilize that space better. And if you think about it, if you wander around your house and you have a look at all of the pictures of your family that are hanging on the wall, they are either in a square frame or a wide frame or a round frame or something like that. None of them are in a 6x19 frame, because that's a really, really awkward shape to get a picture into of any description. So I actually think that having, myself and Neil up here much more controlled in our cameras at the top, and this slightly squatter version off the screen works really well. There's still plenty of space in there. So what I'm going to do now, I'm going to go back and show you some of the problems that I did have earlier with the taller version of the deck, and that involves me going to close down this PowerPoint and open up the other PowerPoint, which will be a little bit messy, but don't worry about it. That's we'll live with that. It will look a bit messy for a moment or two, and we'll come back to see Neil in a bit. But so what I need to do is escape out of this PowerPoint here. So now you can see my PowerPoint in the background. I'm just going to minimize that one because that's the wrong shape for where I am at the moment, and I'm going to bring back in this one and start where I finished off, except I didn't mean to last time click and go on to join Neil at this point. So what I wanted to show you was a couple of little things which I do quite like about PowerPoint. One is this ability to put glows and reflections and things like this around your camera, which is very, very easy to do, and around any other objects. I know it's something small, but I quite like it. As Mac users, we're always rubbishing PowerPoint for not being particularly good with transitions, etc. But they have actually got some quite nice ones for bringing in objects. So Keynote has a similar fade and move one as that. This one kind of spins things in. Now that doesn't exist on Keynote as a transition. I don't know that I really care, but it's just an interesting transition. I could probably think of some use for it occasionally. Then we have some wipe type transitions which are quite nice too. And then another one which I thought was interesting was this one here. Now if I go back on that letter, that question mark, it kind of rolls in and reveals, which I think that could be quite nice on a picture actually, but I would have to play about with those. PowerPoint isn't really my wheelhouse. I'm normally playing around in Keynote, and in fact the little video that you saw Neil talking over earlier on, that's a Keynote presentation that I just did a little recording of. So going on a little bit more, some of the things that I do not like at all about this live motion, or the equivalent of the live motion here, is that if you look at my camera here in Keynote, I might say Keynote, in PowerPoint, in Cameo, watch me and then watch me transition. Weird stuff goes on. And what it's doing is it's freezing me and then unfreezing me. But I wanted to try those very similar presentation style to what we just had with Neil, and just bring on my leadership summit slide there. So I don't know whether you noticed, again I'm going to make that disappear. The leadership summit comes out nice and smoothly from behind the rock face, but again watch my camera as it does it. So my camera sort of twitches, and that's again because as I move between slides it freezes the video and then moves you to the next scene and then unfreezes the video. So if I'm in particular over to one side or something like that, it's going to be more pronounced. So it just looks mad. It just doesn't work at all well. And as I say, I'm sure it's because when they put the thing together, that what they were doing was building in transitions and then thinking, oh, I'll add in some live motion. But again, if you look at this transition, it's kind of clunky. It doesn't work very smoothly at all. But if I come back to this one again, I think that actually looks pretty decent and fairly clean and tidy, and I could move my M letter up there and bring in my early bird tickets there, and it looks quite good. But again, it pauses the video between slides, so I've got different slides and it will pause the video rather than keep the video running. So it's little things like that that would really annoy me. Some people say don't use animation on a PowerPoint deck. I say that's complete nonsense. If you're using it with consideration and carefully, then by all means use animation. I think it makes a big difference. If these are all just static slides, it'll be incredibly boring. So yeah, I think use animation, but just use it reasonably, I would guess would be the better way to say that. So what I'm going to do now, I'm going to go back to the one that has got Neil and myself on it, but I'm going to have to again close down the PowerPoint deck and bring up another one. So it's going to look a mess again. Hang on.
That's all right. I think subtlety is key with these animations. You're absolutely right. I think the point of overdoing it just because you can shouldn't be the case. And as we spoke about with Lee, if you remember, he mentioned all about keeping the audience entertained, having some interrupts, which are, good interrupts with regards to having various elements that you can use to keep your audience occupied and entertained. And if you want to use these types of things to help with that, then yeah, we should be using them, but using them sparingly. It's just like those live transitions or the live motions that you're talking about now. It's nice to slide you in, slide the camera in, slide the other various elements in, but don't overuse it. Do you think Keynote is more smooth with regards to those types of animations? Specifically, I'm referring to cameras, because I noticed that it's freezing. It's almost like it has to do one task first, freeze the camera, do its transition, and then bring the camera animation back in. It's not. It's like it's not doing it as a what is it, like as a parallel task. It's like a serial task. It has to do one thing first and then do the other. I don't know why that is.
Yeah, I think that's exactly what it's doing. And in fact, right now I'm waiting for PowerPoint to close a session down so I can open it up again. Another frustration of
Great.
Microsoft products in general. So it's spinning away. I think it is actually doing something.
Worries.
It's just taking forever to do it.
It's just taking its time.
But you're right. What it's doing is doing things sequentially. So it says, "Oh, I've got a live motion, or a whatever they call it, a morph in PowerPoint to do." And what it does, it says, "Camera A, right? I need to move it over here." So it does the calculations for what it needs to do with the camera itself, but it freezes the video on it totally, and then moves it frozen.
Yeah.
And then puts the video live again, which is no good to me at all.
Bonkers. Never mind. We've got a couple of people in the comments. So hello, Eric. Thanks for joining us. And hey, Chris. Thanks for joining us as well. We are just experimenting with different various use cases of PowerPoint presentations in this vertical format, just to see what we could get away with, what it would look like. And Martin's done a lot of sort of work in the background to try and maximize the areas that you can see within the vertical format to see if things work. And I think it'll look all right if we can get PowerPoint to switch over to its next PowerPoint deck.
If we can get it to do that.
Yeah. Is it freezing or something? Is it just, or is it taking its time to load in or something?
I think it's hanging at the moment, but
That's nice. PowerPoint. Wonderful.
PowerPoint,
I've noticed one thing whilst you're doing that. Sorry, whilst you're fighting with PowerPoint, I had noticed that depending on what type of video capture card you're using, if you want to use the embedded video functions within these presentation tools like PowerPoint and Keynote, if you have got something like a Decklink Quad HDMI interface like I have, it doesn't present itself in those software packages. So I can't basically do this unless I'm just using Ecamm Live's virtual camera and bring it in that way. But that doesn't lend itself to doing what Martin's trying to do, because you need Ecamm to present the whole thing and bring in the camera source independently. So it's all a bit clunky for me. I would have to plug in a cam link or use a USB camera or something like that. So that's just by nothing to do with the Mac, nothing to do with the software. It's just how the Decklink Quad basically takes over the system, and the Mac operating system just basically can't use it in two places at the same time. So it's like a one-use thing. So if I'm using it for Ecamm, you can't use it for anything else. So that would be a limitation for me, but that doesn't mean to say that you individually can't use this type of format. And I think if it's on a phone, I think the stuff looks good. Anyway, did you manage to get it back?
Yeah, I managed to get it back, but of course it's not in the same place now. Which is exactly what you'd expect, isn't it? So, although it is now playing nicely, it's not playing in the right location. So I did have that, by the way, Chris, looking very, very good. I'm going to try bringing up the other one as well, actually, just to see where that fits in.
Sure. Did you see Chris's comment about Gamma as well? We can talk about that as well.
Yeah.
If PowerPoint works. This is live, you wouldn't be trying to switch PowerPoint presentations halfway through a live presentation typically, but it's just for illustration purposes we're showing this.
Well, obviously I have the force quit button open up as well, so
Goodness me. And there's a wonder why I don't use PowerPoint that often. I typically use Canva or Keynote or avoid presentations totally if I can. It just depends.
Yeah, I think that's probably the way to do it.
Possibly, yeah.
Let's minimise that one. Bring in. Now, PowerPoint's driving me a bit mad at the moment.
No worries. I can address Chris's comment or just talk to it if you still want to
talk around Chris's comment. We know the answer.
Yeah. So Chris is asking, have we tried Gamma yet for presentations? It's really great AI functionality. Yeah, so we were just talking about this, Chris, before you joined. We have both played with Gamma. We've both got Gamma accounts because I'm using it at the moment to create some PDF material and some other bits and pieces that we're working on. My wife also uses it for sort of workflows and things like that. So it's a really good app. And what we were talking about is for presentations, it's fantastic if you're in the sort of 16:9 widescreen format and it's bringing in images from various AI sources. And it's great that you can tweak it, make changes on the way and so on. So it works pretty well for a 16:9 format, but when it's in this vertical space, I know Martin was saying earlier that he used Gamma to try and create some of this vertical stuff, and it's a bit clunky because it thinks it's still trying to format the text for a widescreen format, and it doesn't always fit. So yeah, we think we're going to probably just try and do a live video showing people some of the use cases for Gamma. And I don't know whether you've tried as well, Chris, napkin.ai, I think it's called, which is another AI creation tool, but this is purely for infographics and illustrations. So you can ask it a prompt like, show me the best use cases or which social media application has got the most users, and it'll draw various different types of pie charts and graphs and things like that, and you can reuse that in your presentations and stuff. So we'll have to do one on Napkin as well, or maybe combine them both in a show at some point.
So I did have it beautifully laid out, by the way, Chris. I actually loved the way it was laid out. It took me a while to work out how to change things in Gamma to get vertical.
Right.
So you can choose, for instance, 3x4 format, which is actually probably better for this space because then that fits in nicely below where Neil and I sit. If you want to do actual 6x19, then you have to jump into various different locations on the actual Gamma site after you've created it. So you create it, then you go back and change the page setup. I think it's from the 3 dots on the top right hand corner of the screen. It's completely and utterly not obvious. You then have to choose portrait because it doesn't give you the option otherwise, and then it will give you the option for 9x16, which is what we're looking at below us now. And I don't think it really works unless that's in full screen, and then we could place our cameras on the top of it. I guess that would be one way round things. So if I took that as it stands and just made it much bigger, then what we could potentially do is have that there, and then move our cameras into a location on the screen that worked. So we could do something like that type of layout if we wanted to, and that would probably work reasonably well as well. What I was showing earlier was using the Gamma, and then I put the live Cameo camera from PowerPoint directly into the presentation, and as soon as you mix it up with transitions, it doesn't work at all well. The transitions freeze and then flow, then freeze, then flow, and the whole thing just looks a bit of a mess. And because PowerPoint has done all sorts of weird things to me, it's also hidden various Ecamm windows for me. Why wouldn't it? So let me bring back my scenes window so that I can actually change to another scene now. So let's just change to a regular scene, and perhaps we'll bring in some of the questions, etc., that we had. So thanks for joining us, Chris. If you rewind on the show, you will see me making PowerPoint actually look quite cool. So yeah, go back, watch it in LinkedIn, on the app, in replay, and you'll see PowerPoint looking quite cool for a while, until it doesn't. So Napkin, tell us a bit more about Napkin, Neil, because I know that you've been playing about with it for graphics very similar to the one that we had actually with Restream, etc., going on, and connecting in various locations and things.
I came across it because I was looking for program that would help me create infographics, because I think infographics lend themselves really nicely to this type of format. A lot of infographics back in the day were very vertical centric, and I thought, there must be something out there. I wasn't getting much joy with ChatGPT or Midjourney. Midjourney is really great for creating sort of fictitious AI images, but when it comes to sort of actual content that you want to display, then it wasn't great. So a previous live stream that I did, I wanted a very simple sort of overview to show the pros and cons of the various social media platforms, because if you remember, I was trying to find out which platform I should be going on. And that's not really worked out as well as I expected, but that's another story altogether. But the point is, I wanted a graphic to be able to show me the pros and cons of all the social media networks, and I gave it just a prompt. I said, just give me a list of the top social media platforms that a content creator should be posting on in 2025, and just highlight in 2 bullet points the pros and cons. So you just put this prompt into Napkin, similar to what you do with Gamma or other tools, and it will actually spit out, I think, 8 or 9 different visualization styles of how to present that factual information. So as you know, with statistics, there's lots of different ways of showing it: pie charts, pyramid charts, bar chart, whatever it might be. And what's really good about Napkin is once it's created and built these various visualizations, you can basically pick from, I think it's about 8 or 9 per section. So there's 8 or 9 variations of a pie chart, 8 or 9 variations of a bar chart, whatever it might be. Then you can go in and edit all those individually if you want. You can tweak the text, you can move things around. So it's quite fluid in the respect that once it's created it, it's not just a rigid layout with just one standard font or something like that. You can import your own fonts. You can do so many things with it and tweak it, and they've just introduced a few more features now. So it's free as well, which I forgot to mention, that right now, because Napkin is in beta, it's completely 100% free. Now, Gamma is free, but it's limited to, I think, 4 or 6 slides, something like that, and then it has watermarks on it, something like that. 8, yeah.
8 slides.
So you can have 8 slides, which is enough.
It's enough, but you're limited to the number of generations that you can do as well.
Right,
so,
that's right, actually, for graphics. But Napkin is still free, so I would definitely check it out if you want to create some form of visualization for statistics and things like that. And you can just have fun with it as well, because it's using like a ChatGPT model, so you can really sort of tweak the prompts and so on. I don't know how long it's going to be in beta for, and therefore how long it's going to be free, but I'm sure they're going to introduce some plans similar to everything else where you get X amount of generations or credit space and stuff like that. But it's probably one of the best tools I've come across at the moment for doing this type of workflow. So
does it do, am I wrong, does it do 3D graphics as well?
Some 3D elements to it, I think, and I'm sure they've just added some more. We're definitely going to have to do a live play around with these. Maybe you can take Gamma, I'll take Napkin, show people a few bits and pieces and how they work. But yeah, it's interesting. I think it's becoming easier to create nice presentations. I was going to ask you, does PowerPoint and things like that? But let's answer this question first, sorry.
Yeah, let's just answer this question from Eric first. In Keynote, you can adjust the resolution of the presentation to 916, display it in Ecamm, it should work without any problems. Yes, you're entirely right, Eric, it does. However, as back to what I was saying earlier on, unfortunately, 92% of the world use PowerPoint still for their presentations, so that's the purpose of showing PowerPoint today. It does work in Keynote. We much prefer Keynote, but actually it's PowerPoint first with about 92%, then about 5 or 6% is Google Slides, and then the remaining couple of percent is Keynote and Canva and other tools. So literally the domination is ridiculous for PowerPoint. So horses for courses, but business uses PowerPoint, business uses Teams. We'd rather not. We'd rather everyone was using Macs and using Keynote, and it's certainly my presentation tool of choice. However, as the world uses PowerPoint, I thought we'd give PowerPoint a chance today, and it did all right, providing you put the right things in the right places. And I would definitely say you need to work very sparingly. In fact, you can't do it. You can't combine live video and their motion, live motion equivalent, which they call morph. Don't use the two together. Your images will go all over the place and look horrible. However, providing you don't do that, then you'll probably be okay. But it kind of, it's just frustrating that it almost lets you do what you want to, but not quite. So thank you for the question, though. But you're entirely correct. And Graffiti says, sounds cool. It certainly is very cool. All of these tools are really useful, and in terms of workflow, certainly they give you a great starting point, and that's why I really like the Gamma stuff. And it wasn't till I started playing about I thought, oh, I wonder if it can do things in tall. And if you choose tall, it will give you automatically a 3x4 format, which is actually exactly what I want to be doing. So I think that's really cool.
One thing I've tried with Gamma recently as well, as you know, Martin, is I trying to create some courses at the moment, and I thought, well, let's use ChatGPT to create a course outline as just text, because you can use anything with Gamma. You can put in an existing PDF and tell it to just make it better or worse, depending on what images it picks, and then you can also maybe take a course outline or a bunch of text and throw that into Gamma as well, and then just let that upload, and it will generate a presentation or a PDF document or whatever it might be based on what you give it. So there's lots of things it can actually do. You don't just have to give it a prompt and it'll generate a presentation. You can also sort of rejig presentations. I think you can actually give it PowerPoint presentations, right? And ask it to sort of reformat those as well. So it will take existing material and you can tweak and change it and do what you want. So I think it's super useful for that.
So a couple of add the question to the broadcast. How do you keep your live on YouTube without it deleting in OBS? I don't know, because we're using Ecamm.
Sorry, what's that? How do you keep your live on YouTube without it deleting it in OBS? If you're referring to using OBS as a stream where you're recording and then pushing it out to YouTube, I mean, YouTube will save all your live streams, if that's what you're asking. So you can use OBS to record your stream as it's going along and then push that out to YouTube, and YouTube will keep it. As long as you're pushing it to YouTube, every live stream that you do on YouTube is kept. So I'm not sure if that answers your question. Hey, Saeed. Maybe Saeed can answer the question, because Saeed is an OBS expert.
I recommend Saeed answer the question. So
yeah. So if you can answer the question in the chat, Saeed, that would be great.
Font size has now gone huge, but that's Saeed, the facilitator. So thanks for joining us, Saeed. You missed the beginning of the show where things were working really well until I pressed the wrong button, and then we ended up in the wrong place with the wrong scenes, because I was trying to combine PowerPoint, and what we were doing. So just to recap, for those of you who didn't catch the beginning of the show, first of all I was showing you was a straight PowerPoint deck, but it was me live using the PowerPoint Cameo facility, which is their live video within PowerPoint on a 9x16 frame, so covering the whole screen. We then went on to a smaller version of PowerPoint where myself and Neil were sitting where we are at the moment and had the deck below us, and I felt that the proportions then were much easier to work with. So that's 3x4 in terms of the proportions. So if you are going to play about with this, I'd recommend you go look at those particular proportions. Bear in mind, all of these tools can produce decks in those different sizes. So I'm saying that glibly. I assume Canva can and Google Slides can, but I've never tried it with either of those tools. But I would assume that they can. We already know that Gamma will produce stuff in this shape and format as well. So there's plenty of tools out there to work with, and there is more space than you think there is in this real estate on mobile. And remember, all of those tools you can put in videos and animations and little graphics and whatever else you want to in terms of information graphics and all sorts of moving stuff to make it look nice. So do go and have a play about with that. As Neil says, we will come back a bit later on at some point and look at Gamma specifically, and Neil said he'll look at Napkin as well. So two AI generation tools. What we'd also really appreciate it if those of you who are watching, I know some of you already have, thank you Chris and Saeed, if anyone's watching and you've not already subscribed to the Go Live Now company page on LinkedIn, go and look me up, Martin McKenna in Edinburgh, and you'll find me on LinkedIn. I'm easy to find on LinkedIn. If you then click on that company page for Go Live Now, that would be great if you could just follow us on there. Now the reason is we want to try and do this live streaming to a company page, and I didn't know until recently they've introduced something new where you've got to have 150 followers on your company page. I've had a dormant company page for years and years. I've got 5,000 followers on LinkedIn and only 51 I think on the company page, so I need to get to 150. So if you could go to there, that would be great. There's even a little notification bell which I'm assuming, although I've never tried it, I'm assuming that will tell you when we're going live on the company page, and it'll feed into your LinkedIn feed if you click the notification bell. However, we won't be going live on there anytime soon because I still need another 99 followers, so don't even bother clicking the bell probably just yet. But do, if you wouldn't mind, go to my LinkedIn profile, click on the company page and hit that follow link. And also follow us on YouTube, on either my channel or Neil's channel. We're finding a lot of people are now watching this vertical format, so there clearly is a lot of interest going on. And yes, I thank you. I can invite contacts to follow me on my company page. The only problem with that is all of my contacts in LinkedIn are really associated with my previous software sales and events business, so they're not really interested in following me to see what I'm doing with live streaming and Ecamm and OBS or indeed anything else. So in the comments, Neil has just dropped in the LinkedIn details for both myself and Neil. If you want to go grab those, please do. Later in the week, he says, looking at the next scene, hurrah, we have Johnny Byrne joining us later in the week, so that's how it is pronounced, not how it looks like it is spelt. So looking forward to have Johnny coming on, and Johnny is going to teach us a bit of wizardry about green screen, and I do love a bit of green screen, so this could be an interesting show. Hopefully Johnny will turn up with his green screen and we can see some of his magic, and then I'm hoping to bring him into my office potentially, and we'll see how that goes, but it should be a little bit different. That will be in the regular landscape format, because we kind of, we'll run out of space otherwise, but I think maybe if that works well, we'll get Johnny back in and maybe we'll try some green screen on the vertical space. We actually did that with Alec Johnson and Fulgence very, very briefly last week. The challenge becomes, if you're setting up green screen, it's very easy if you're sitting still. You don't need any complicated lighting. It's a bit more difficult if you're standing up, but if, as per last week, you moving between standing up and sitting down as I was doing, it really makes it awkward because you need two different sets of lighting for standing up and for sitting down. So we'll be largely sitting down, I think, come Friday. And it's 2 p.m, is it not, Neil?
It's 2 p.m. UK, and I did make a mistake. It's not 7 a.m. Eastern yet. It's actually 9 a.m. Eastern and 2 p.m. UK, but on Friday, not Thursday this week. It's actually on a Friday. So join us.
Yeah, I think that one's going to be fun. So thank you, Part Brothers, for joining, following the company page. And hopefully if anyone's watching this on the replay, there's nothing stopping you to go and follow the company page after you've watched this on the replay. And I highly recommend, if you've not tried this, people, wait for this show to end, open up your LinkedIn app, and then look at the replay on the LinkedIn app. it will come out full screen. Just touch it once and it'll look really good on the phone on replay. So at some stage we are assuming that LinkedIn will allow us to stream live in vertical and it look good on the phone rather than it look ridiculous as it does at the moment. Now, I don't know why, but I don't have the scroll button on my phone. I am told that that is related to how you join LinkedIn. Originally, when you originally join, they give you a random number and you become part of a group, and you're that part of that group forever. It's not regional or anything like that, but it rolls out to that group one at a time. So Neil has it in Portugal. It seems most of the people I've spoken to in the US have got that facility on their phone. I still don't have it on mine, but I'm going to be interested to see when it does appear and when we can start flicking through vertical videos, because I really need to know what the algorithm's going to do in terms of showing you next. And when you think about how much information LinkedIn has got about you and what you're viewing and what your history is and who you're connected to and everything like that, it should be able to make fantastic recommendations about what you want to view on LinkedIn. So I'm kind of assuming, because Microsoft's got all this AI stuff in the background, sometime, maybe someone from Microsoft, being as they own LinkedIn, might speak to people at LinkedIn and say, oh, we've got some great AI algorithms that you might want to be using to help people locate video content that is appropriate for their particular job role or location or whatever it happens to be. So many factors that you could direct video to. So we'll have a chat about that at some point in the future, but I think more or less that's us done an hour for today, even though I pressed the wrong buttons halfway through and messed things up. For those of you who didn't see that, go back, watch the beginning on the replay. It's been good. So from that, I'm going to say cheerio from Edinburgh.
And goodbye from Portugal. See you on
later,
Friday.
folks. Bye-bye.